Hello and welcome to Catholic Unscripted. I'm Catherine Bennett.
I'm Mark Lambert.
I'm Gavin Ashenden.
We're all here together. We thought we'd meet after a very difficult week. For those of you just joining us for the first time who know nothing about Catholic Unscripted, we are three lay Catholics who discuss, people have described us as a Catholic talk show. So we discuss matters Catholic and cultural. And Gavin likes alliteration, so I thought you'd like that, Gavin. Catholic and cultural. So thank you for joining us. We're recording out of the UK.
Clever Catholic and cultured.
I knew it. I thought there would be.
I knew it. Yeah. He's going to have to add in a third. I know it.
The Anglo-Saxons always used three, and I'm a bit prone to Anglo-Saxon literature.
Well, we should. I mean, three is the pattern of reality as we know it.
Three's the magic number.
Three is the magic number. So
welcome. Said.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to all you who join us regularly, our members, those viewers who have been watching Catholic Unscripted for the last few years. And if you're joining us for the first time, as I said, we are unusually, I think, recording out of the UK. So there's a lot of American podcasts. And we are quite hot, aren't we, today? It's quite warm.
Well, we are. Gavin's got a jumper on. I'm absolutely roasting here in Essex. But...
I live in the far north, and I had to chip the icicles off my nose to get into my broadcasting corner. I know it's very hot where you are, but really there's a complete change of weather. Anyway, not that matters. That's just that I look a little bit less gleamy and shiny than you do.
Gavin, we're English. The weather always matters. Come on.
True.
We're hot. We're struggling. We're struggling on this Corpus Christi Sunday. TP's joined us. Hello, TP. We hope you're going to correct our speech soon enough. We'll look out for it and bring that up on the screen if you do. Mind your T's, men, when you say often. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you for joining us. Do please comment. We are live today. I'm off to Lourdes tomorrow, Lourdes, France, for those of you that aren't sure. Hello, Anna McCormick. Lovely to see you.
Anna.
Look, our friend Anna. Hey, Anna. I'm off to Lourdes, so I will be praying for all of you, our viewers and our members, and ask you to continue to pray for us. And no doubt I will jump on and embarrass my children by live streaming from Lourdes this week. So here we are, Corpus Christi. And what a week. As I said, I began by saying we're recording out of the UK. And the UK has had a tough week because in one week, we have seen a vote to get rid of the upper limit on abortion, which was already double that of other places across Europe. So it was at 24 weeks. We know that pregnancies where abnormalities were found, including cleft lip and palate, were already didn't have a limit up to birth. But now this has been completely decriminalised. So in effect, a woman can abort her baby in utero up to and including birth. And she can do this also under the pills by post scheme that was brought in during COVID, all under the name of reproductive rights. Got it? Rights. Okay. We also, at the end of the week, so to top and tail the week, at the beginning of the week, there was the abortion law. And at the end of the week, we had the suicide bill, the assisted suicide bill voted through, which means it now goes to the Lords. It may happen, and we hope and pray it does happen, but it would be unusual for the Lords to now not pass the bill. So it could be that in 1 week we have absolutely had this seismic shift, the biggest cultural shift since the 1967 abortion act, and it's Corpus Christi Sunday. So there's a lot there. Let's go to you, Mark. How has your Sunday been, and what are your thoughts after the week we've had?
Well, I think, like you say, it's been Friday especially was particularly depressing, and it's a shame for our American viewers who probably don't. I wonder how well they know what's going on over here, but it has been a real onslaught for us guys over here, with the culture of death really winning through on all fronts, and it's important to stay buoyant and not to let it depress you too much, because sometimes it feels like we're losing the argument. And Although our bishops were particularly vocal about the assisted suicide thing, thank God. Lots of them spoke out about it. It was interesting to note that there was not very much said about the abortion thing at all, which it puzzles me and worries me. And given the double whammy that we've had this week, I noticed that our friend Caroline Farrow said, she was hoping that every parish priest would speak about the dignity of human life from the pulpit today. And I'm very happy to say that, my parish priest, without any provocation from me, did precisely that. So I've got a real sense that the reason we're in this mess is because we haven't been given the tools to have these arguments. And they're, I think they're good. They're, how can I explain? I've got empathy with those arguments, with the argument that we don't want people to suffer. We want, we like that. Like, it's understandable to see why people get themselves in this position where they go, oh yeah, that's reasonable. That makes a lot of sense. And it's very important then that we give them counter arguments. And to that end, I don't know if you've both seen, but I've sort of put a couple of things on Facebook in particular to just not that. And the purpose of it really was just to give friends a tool to deal with common things that are said about these sort of issues. And like, obviously the first thing is about compassion, where people say it's compassion to help someone who's suffering. And of course, that's an instinct that we all feel, that we want to help someone who's suffering. But, true compassion isn't helping people to die, but it's helping them to live with dignity and love until life's natural end. And the final stage of life is a reality for all of us. And it's marked by vulnerability, and we've kind of, we've kept away from that in our society for some reason recently. And when a society legalizes assisted suicide, as we seem to be inevitably progressing towards, we really are crossing a line, and we begin to redefine human worth in terms of things like autonomy and productivity and freedom from suffering, which are really, in truth, narrow and ultimately dehumanizing measures of value. And they risk marginalizing, especially those who are elderly, disabled, or chronically ill. And when we do this, we erode the bonds of solidarity and the moral obligation to protect and affirm the dignity of the most vulnerable among us. And these are really the issues that we need to bring to the fore in these arguments. And Gavin and I were just having a little chat there before we come in. And I think a lot of people have commented to Gavin that it's really shocking that there hasn't been more of a philosophical or theological argument. It's just been very mechanical. Was that right, Gavin? Was that the gist of what was said to you?
Yes. There's been no reference to religion by the MPs at all, apart from being afraid that the Pope will send his secret agents in to wreck the discussion. I think what you've just said, Mark, is one of the best ways of getting into it. It's really about which produces the best results for humanity. And the problem that our MPs have done is they've taken a fundamentalist attitude without any understanding of the unexpected consequences. So the unexpected consequences for giving women feminist freedom over their own bodies is the wholesale slaughter of viable children, because that's one of the consequences. But they refuse to look at it. The inevitable consequence of treating children as dispensable. Sorry, I said that. Catherine's doing hand signals, and I'm suddenly wondering what's going on. I'll try and concentrate.
No, sorry, I brought up the wrong comment. Carry on.
Fine. I can only think of one thing at a time. I'm getting old, so I get derailed if I start.
You call me Caroline. That was.
Yeah, it could have been much worse. But going back to Caroline Farrow, the other obvious problem is that the consequence of euthanasia is losing all dignity for human beings, and as you said, treating them as entirely disposable. I think one of the things people don't realize is that acting in this fundamentalist secular way, they're producing a culture in which human beings are far worse off. There is no better culture than a Christian culture, where human beings are given an automatic dignity they've done nothing to deserve because they bear God's image. One of the things we've not managed to persuade the people is that Christianity is not a repressive system of ethics. It's a worldview and a philosophy in which people flourish better than they do in the quasi-secular paganism that they're employing. So in 5 years' time, we'll be able to say, look what you've done. There are some really serious results, consequences you didn't foresee in all this, much in the same way as we can say that there have been ever since the Abortion Act here, but they're not listening, they're not interested, and they have no facility for arguing or discussing, and there's really no philosophical or theological capacity in Parliament. It was just an exercise in feminist secular fundamentalism, and all the more dangerous for it.
Yeah, I was at a fantastic wedding yesterday, the wedding of a young couple, Anna and Jack, who were 22 and 23, I think, a young couple who met at university, who met at a Catholic college in the US. And it was a beautiful old rite mass. And there were 350 people there. And both there, and I spoke about this at Chartres, you really see what is meant by living in the world but not of it. And I do think that we say we live in the world but not of it, but we're of it. We are of the world. How many of us are saying we live in the world but we're not of it, but we watch TV, enjoy the media stuff that comes out of Hollywood? We are purchasing all the stuff that we're told we have to purchase. We are of the world. And I'm conscious, and we don't have to be, we really don't have to be, but it takes a real effort. Just like going to good liturgy takes a real effort if you can at all. And it's not our fault. It's not our fault that it's not accessible to us. But I was thinking about how we worship, Mark often talks about this, how we worship, how we pray informs what we believe. And I think we can sit here and we can say, well, of course we have to look with compassionate eyes, and of course this is difficult, and why haven't the bishops spoken out? And the reason the bishops haven't spoken out is because they're also thinking, it's a bit harsh. We know abortion's wrong, but these poor women are in these difficult circumstances. And look, the truth is, this is the world we're in. This is the world that we are of. This is inevitable. Of course we accept abortion. Of course we accept assisted suicide. We are absolutely pushing against the tide. It won't last forever. It will be repealed. It probably won't be in our lifetime. But we are absolutely where we should expect to be, given how we have fallen away from our faith, from the true faith, in massive numbers over the last few decades. And it's just, I just don't know how helpful it is to come out at the 11th hour and say, oh, let's not forget abortion's wrong and assisted suicide is wrong. Who are you talking to? Who are the bishops talking to at this stage? They're talking to a culture that is already so far. The mountain, the hill to climb is so great that the words just don't reach their hearts. They don't reach their ears. And I do think that we have to be honest about how we worship is forming who we are, and it ain't forming us very well. It's forming us into the kind of people, the kind of Catholics, let's be honest, the Catholics, because there are Catholic MPs who supported these various bills on the grounds of compassion, who are proposing and supporting these things. I think it's utterly outrageous, and we need bishops to speak up. Really, I think not to worry too much about, the 10 minutes of compassion before they get to the 20 minutes of hard teaching. Scrap it. We haven't got time for that. Yeah, compassion. Let's be compassionate.
Well, I think you're exactly right. And like another part of that puzzle is that you wonder, the dialogue that we've been involved with the Catholic Education Service and that sort of thing, you've got to wonder, do the bishops think, why are Catholic MPs voting for these measures? The guy who's I'm in a terrible situation in Lee, if you don't know, we had a wonderful Catholic member of Parliament in my constituency here, who was very pro-life, Sir David Amis, and he was murdered by a guy, an Islamist, basically, came into his surgery. Like they have, the MPs have surgeries, which is like an open forum where people can come in and have meetings with them and deal with problems that they've got. This guy basically just turned up, just literally up the road, half a mile up the road from me, and jumped him and stabbed him multiple times. It was absolutely horrendous. And this is an MP who we all knew and loved, someone, very dear to us. Now, the guy that's replaced him is a Labour guy. And I think that's probably as a result of the fact that everyone was pretty fed up with the government, Boris Johnson sort of government. So we ended up with a Labour MP, David Burton Sampson, who's our MP, who is in a same-sex relationship. Obviously, this week was posting on Twitter that he's raised in Parliament the fact that the court ruling that you can't indoctrinate people with transgender ideology anymore, that trans people are feeling marginalised. That's what he felt was a priority to raise in Parliament this week. And obviously he's on side with all of the deaf culture, so he's voting for all of that. And obviously I wrote to him and he wrote back to me and said that it doesn't really, he is a Christian, and so he feels like he's got empathy with my position, but ultimately he's voting for death. And this guy, someone tweeted me that this guy went to a Catholic school. And so we're failing, aren't we? We're failing. We've got this fantastic opportunity with our Catholic schools to put people in touch with solid arguments. And that's sort of the way that I tried to start this, is the church has got solid arguments. I mean, if you're looking for solid arguments, read John Paul II's encyclical Evangelium Vitae, which deals with both of these issues. But why are we not transmitting that to our young people? And on the cliff base, as a catechist for the diocese, I've seen that our young people tend to be, a vast majority of them, except for a very small minority who learn the faith from their parents. The rest of them really have got no idea what the church teaches or why. They're on board with the secular agenda, exactly as Catherine says. They're living in the world and they're of the world, and they just accept that is the correct way to go. And as a result of that, it's too, exactly as Catherine says, it's too late at this stage for the bishops to come out and say this is a bad thing, when we have failed to teach that for decades now. So what are we going to do about it? Is it just up to us on this channel to keep banging on about why the culture is poisonous?
Is it, Gavin?
Well, I think you've raised a very good point about what this channel is trying to do. I mean, we can lament the fact that the church has failed very badly over the last 50 years. It certainly has. We can lament the fact that our culture is driving itself over a secular cliff edge. It certainly is. But I think one of the things that we're trying to do on this channel is to restore a vision for a better kind of living. We're articulating what it is to be a Catholic, and we're very proud of Catholic culture. We undoubtedly we're losing a cultural struggle. But I don't think we should beat ourselves up over the fact that it's gone down the tube, so to speak, because what we're here to do is to talk about the beauty, the effectiveness, the power, the authenticity of what it is to live as a Catholic Christian. And one of the ways in which I think will change culture is people will see the Catholic family with lots of children who say their prayers and who are not addicted to television. It's a very
but they're not really seeing much of that at most churches, are they, Gav?
Our responsibility is simply
90+% of Catholics are using contraception.
Our responsibility is to live the Catholic life as it's supposed to be. And when people see Catholics living it, they'll be attracted to it. You're quite right. People are not doing it very well. But the fact that it's being done badly doesn't mean we shouldn't put all our effort into celebrating where it's done well. We're here to show people what it's like when it's done, what the fruits of it are. And one of the reasons why we can be confident is that every time pagans come up against Catholic Christianity, they're either furious and try and kill it or destroy it or lock people up, or they're overwhelmed and impressed and they convert. So we're here to live it with as authentically as we can, in order that people should be moved by the reality of Christ and by what Christ's plan is for a human being. There's that marvelous patristic statement that the glory of God is a human being fully alive. It's often taken out of context, but that doesn't matter. Let's use it anyway. This is the glory of God, and human beings who are fully alive because they live out the Catholic vision of restored humanity are very attractive. And I don't think we should beat ourselves up. I think we should celebrate. We're here to articulate what it is, to remind people, to say our prayers, to celebrate it, and to give some momentum to this whole project of rescuing human beings that Jesus started and uses us to continue.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we beat ourselves up. I think that's totally useless. But I am suggesting that for all the good talk we can share, the numbers are dwindling. There isn't the fire, there isn't the great witness that should be there. And Mark talks about solid arguments. Why aren't we transmitting solid arguments? And that's good, because I think we need good arguments, and we need to bolster our young people who are going to go off and face this onslaught in the culture and be able to speak back with reasoned arguments. But arguments are not enough. They're part of what is needed, and we need good catechesis and so on. But we need to worship right. We need to be rightly ordered in the way that we worship. And all too often we don't, and this is why I say it's not our fault. A lot of the time we don't have access to the kind of worship that is going to help form us outside of. Actually, I wanted to read, if you're just joining us, by the way, you're very welcome. This is Catholic Unscripted. Some of you are faithful viewers and have been watching us for a few years. Some of you may be new to our channel. You're welcome. I say a Catholic talk show because that's what we've been described as. So we look at the culture and the church through obviously a Catholic lens, and we come together as the three of us, and Gavin there, Mark there, me, Catherine, and discuss matters, and also do some videos on our own. But do stick with us, like, share and subscribe. Look, I wanted to read to you. It's a little long, but I saw Robert Nugent reading from the Magnificat today, and I figured if he can do it, I can do it. So let me read to you the sequence at today's Corpus Christi Mass. Listen to this. Sion, lift thy voice and sing, praise thy Saviour and thy King. Praise with hymns thy shepherd true, strive thy best to praise him well. Yet doth he all praise excel, none can ever reach his due. See today before us laid the living and the life-giving bread, theme for praise and joy profound, the same which at the sacred board was by our incarnate Lord given to his apostles round. Let the praise be loud and high, sweet and tranquil be the joy felt today in every breast on this festival divine, which records the origin of the glorious Eucharist. On this table of the King, our new Paschal offering brings to end the olden rite. Here, for empty shadows fled, is reality instead. Here, instead of darkness, light. His own act at supper seated, Christ ordained to be repeated in his memory divine. Wherefore now, with adoration, we the host of our salvation consecrate from bread and wine. Hear what Holy Church maintaineth, that the bread its substance changeth into flesh, the wine to blood. Doth it pass thy comprehending? See, we're rational creatures. We have to comprehend. We must understand. Doth it pass thy comprehending? Faith, the law of sight transcending, leaps to things not understood. Here, beneath these signs are hidden priceless things to sense forbidden. Signs, not things, are all we see. Flesh from bread and blood from wine, yet is Christ in either sign all entire confessed to be. They too who of him partake sever not, nor rend, nor break, but entire their Lord receive. Whether one or thousands eat, all receive the self-same meat, nor the less for others leave. Both the wicked and the good eat of this celestial food, but with ends how opposite. Here it is life, there it is death. The same yet issuing to each in a difference infinite. Nor a single doubt retain when they break the host in twain, but that in each part remain what was in the whole before, since the simple sign alone suffers change in state or form, the signified remaining one, and the same for evermore. Lo, upon the altar lies, hidden deep from human eyes, bread of angels from the skies, made the food of mortal man, children's meat to dogs denied. In old types for signified, in the manner heaven supplied, Isaac and the Paschal Lamb. Jesu, shepherd of the sheep, thou thy flock in safety keep. Living bread, thy life supply, strengthen us, or else we die. Fill us with celestial grace. Thou who feedest us below, source of all we have or know, grant that with thy saints above, sitting at the feast of love, we may see thee face to face. Amen. Alleluia. And we go on to have the Gospel of John 6, which I know Mark has a lot to say about. This gospel that tells us, this is my flesh, drinketh he who drinks my flesh. He who eats my flesh and drinketh my blood abideth in me, and I in him. Listen,
it's very clever of you to get your dogs to howl in protest.
To bark at just the time, I know.
Where you said they were being denied. I thought it was brilliant theatre. Well
I know.
done.
Going live, this is the what you face. I'm already in a really hot box, having shut the windows and the doors and turned the fan off, and still the dogs bark. But listen, I know that was long, but I thought that was really beautiful. This is the sequence at the traditional mass today, and I think to be part of a liturgy that says this is that reminds us that we must worship in this way that will help to form us, I think is something that, you know, we've talked before about how this stripping away is having consequences. This stripping away of the way in which we have traditionally worshipped for centuries is having a consequence, and there's no doubt that there is a relationship between that and the things going on in the culture today that we've just spoken about. You're muted. You're muted, Mark. I think you're still muted, Mark. Sorry. Is he, Gav?
Yeah, I've got to press it down.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
And there, and I was pressing it up there. Yeah, I was at a mass yesterday with Anna. I don't know if Anna's still watching. For Marriage and Family Life at Brentwood Cathedral, and it is. I don't know if anyone knows Brentwood Cathedral, but basically the last bishop that we had, not the current one, had it renovated by an atheist architect. And so you've got the cathedral building, and then he's built onto the side of it like all I can describe it as is a Palladian mansion. It's basically like it's like a huge Friends meeting hall, or like a Methodist meeting hall or something like that. There's no Catholic symbolism whatsoever. There's one cross on the far wall. It's mass in the round, so which means that when the celebrant enters, he has to thread his way through all the chairs. They have to. It's just, the whole thing is just absolutely awful. And you've got the lectern faces the ecclesia at the other end, and the altar is in the middle, and that's all in the middle of the church. So, and the kind of liturgy there was God love them, like you're saying.
Stop it! Stop! God love them.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad. Okay.
You like
No
Louise
more
was saying
niceness.
to me. Louise was saying to me, "Stop moaning, because I was just going, "Oh my goodness me," through the whole thing. And it's just like, I was saying to Anna after our Corpus Christi session today, it's like when we were children, and we had, it's the kind of Catholicism that we grew up with, which is this beige felt banners, people saying things that they don't really believe, they don't really matter. And our bishop is he's a lovely man, Bishop Allen. He's very amiable and all that sort of thing. And he sort of brought up the fact that it had been a difficult week, and that it was just his opinion, but he thought that abortion and euthanasia was wrong. And I was sort of going, no, it's not your opinion. It's what the church believes. Have a bit of gumption about it. You're here to proclaim.
I see he's still waiting on his spine donor.
Conviction, about what you're saying, because these things are really important. It's not just your opinion; it's what the church believes. It's what the church has always taught. And this is exactly what you're saying about the, what has Mass become. It's not. It was like we'd all got together for marriage and family life or something like that, and there wasn't really any sense of what we were doing. In other words, worshipping the eternal God. It was absent from it. And even though there were elements, there were bits of Latin in the liturgy and one thing and another, there was, that like the awful hymn. Do you remember that hymn? All that I am, all that I do, all that I'll ever. It's just like, oh. And
that is so bad. Yeah.
Furious through the whole thing. And so I'm always in this dilemma. Now, I go to a Novus Ordo parish where we occasionally are fortunate enough to have the extraordinary form. And we used to have the extraordinary form in our diocese a lot more. So we'd travel out to go to it because, to be frank with you, the kids really, really love it. And I really love it. And my wife loves it. And so we're in a situation where even the contrast with my Novus Ordo parish was jarring with this. And it frightens me because I'm in a little Catholic bubble where I feel like when I go to Mass, I'm being spiritually fed, even though we're not fortunate enough to have the traditional Latin Mass every week. But I do feel like we have a very reverent liturgy and it's beautifully done. And you do feel like you are worshipping, and that's all thanks to my parish priest, really. But
it's still structured around us, isn't it? It is. You do definitely get a sense, even with the Reverend Novus Ordo, that it's the focus is less on worshipping God and very much on us as humans. There has been a shift. There has been a shift in that, and what I'm saying is, there has been a shift. We see the fruits of it. We see people falling away in their droves. We see the shrinking of the church, and we have implemented a kind of a liturgy that we think is what man would need according to man's judgment. And that's going to have effects. And so we sit in 2025 talking about the disastrous life bills. But how can we possibly be surprised? It's obviously we stand up for life, and things won't always be this way, but it's just inevitable.
Yeah, I think there's lots of different factors. I think that certainly the liturgy is a huge part of that, but you can't say that there weren't problems. People weren't pushing in a certain direction before the liturgy changed, and I think that we have to address it on all those levels. And I think, as much as anything else, as I said at the beginning, if we're not even getting the arguments out there, it's the arguments that attract people then. And for some people, they're attracted just to, the transcendentals, just to the beautiful liturgy or one thing or another.
Exactly.
But it doesn't work all that way for everyone. And I think especially men, we need to be sort of convicted intellectually often. I know that's certainly what worked for me. And I as growing up, if I reached a point where I felt less committed to my faith, it was because I felt that my faith didn't make any sense. And it was discovering that actually it does make sense. And in the ancient tradition of the church, that faith and reason are, partners in teaching us how to react, how to live in the world but not be of the world. That's really what then deepened my faith. And I've said to you before, liturgically, I was still a baby. Even when I was studying, I didn't really have much of a liturgical sense, and that was probably largely because I'd been desensitized to the Mass having very much meaning at all, because of the Novus Ordo. And it was only then after 2007 when Summorum Pontificum facilitated access to the traditional rite that going to that Mass, I felt in connection with the saints and my own forebears, and I felt like this was real worship. And that's increasingly, well, I mean, it's been a long while now, obviously since 2007, but my experience was very much like, that when people talk, and I'm a hermeneutic of continuity guy, as you know, but when you hear that,
remember that, everyone,
when you hear that sort of rhetoric of, it's the same rite that Benedict came out with in Summorum Pontificum, when you're going to the traditional Latin Mass, it's very difficult to reconcile that with the reality, because I think the prayers and the actions and the attitudes of people who attend the traditional Latin Mass tend to be better, more Catholic. That's the only way I can describe it. You're more embedded in what it means to be a Catholic if you go to the traditional Mass.
Yeah, because it's that traditional liturgy that is forming you. That's where we began this conversation, and people have jumped in at different points. So we were talking about how we've had this terrible week in the UK with voting to allow abortion up to and including birth, decriminalise it completely, even though it was ahead of most of Europe anyway. And at the end of the week, the bill to allow assisted suicide, which is highly likely to go through. It's not a done deal, but it's well on the way. And so we become the culture of death that we would expect to be when we have, well, I mean, you can go back to any point, and I know it starts in Eden, but Gavin will be able to, and has talked at great length about the Protestant deformation and what that's done to us in terms of how we see, how we understand the kind of people we are. What I loved in the reading I just read, and some people are asking what it was the sequence from today's Corpus Christi liturgy, which was sung in Latin, but you can follow along in this is the St. Andrew's daily missal, and in this sequence we're reminded of our faith, of the that these beautiful lines: here beneath these signs are hidden priceless things to sense forbidden. Signs, not things, are all we see, flesh from bread and blood from wine. That we're just modern man, as it were. Peter Kwasniewski says he uses the term modern man with quotation marks, but modern man is blinded, really. And the thing about the traditional liturgy is it draws you back into that mystery in a way that is not explicable, because if it were explicable, then it wouldn't be what it is. Gavin, we'd like your comments, please, on your expert Catholic opinion on the move from the traditional Mass to the Novus Ordo, and which do you attend and why?
Well, I was thinking, I attend Novus Ordo in Shrewsbury Cathedral, and although I endorse everything you said, and I would say that because of the emphasis on the sort of an anthropomorphic narcissism, people being the center of everything, our feelings being important, the whole turning towards the people as being, making it look as though what the people were doing or enjoying mattered, that this produced a terrible imbalance, and the Latin Mass reintroduces the notion of transcendence and what the people at Chartres called the verticality. The French have got this word that I think describes it very nicely. We don't use it in English, but the emphasis of the vertical. But I was thinking how much I love the Novus Ordo Mass. I mean, I can sit down and I've listened carefully enough to see the liturgical aberrations above all the things that have been left out, as well as the put in. But I was thinking what really matters to me is the way that the clergy lead the liturgy. Because if the clergy adore Christ and have a sense of his transcendent authority and presence, then even the Novus Ordo is the Mass. It does the work. So I'd be very glad to see much more of the Latin Mass available to people. I think we're completely unbalanced and we need to restore the balance. But I don't want to undermine the authenticity of the Mass, because for an Anglican to come from the much deeper inauthenticity of the Anglican rite, which is a rather incompetent recapitulation of Maundy Thursday and leaves out, as Peter Krasniewski was talking about, the whole drama of Good Friday. Well, what the Anglicans have, both the lack of the supernatural, the lack of anything happening, the lack of any liturgical sense, the breach with it's so awful that you might forget sometimes how wonderful the Mass is, even the Novus Ordo. And what's required, I think, is that it's done with reverence and adoration and awe.
What does that look like? So, what does that mean, Gavin, with reverence and adoration?
Well, I think you know it when you see it, Catherine.
I noticed your Donatist tendencies coming out there. You're not saying the faith of the priest is whether it is marks whether the Mass is valid or not, or his.
No, I'm saying the demeanor of the priest sets an example for the people who come to worship, because where you find a priest who doesn't really appear, for some reasons one doesn't understand, doesn't appear either to believe or to demonstrate the fact that he's in love with Christ and adores him, it casts a degree of unreality over the thing. If the priest who's celebrating the Mass doesn't come to it with the level of devotion and integrity, then I think it makes it harder for the people to get through all the secular pressures they've come through the door with. You talk about being in and not of the world, quite rightly, but people come straight from the world to Mass. Not many of them prepare. They often jump in their cars and they rush from doing whatever they were doing, and are supposed to make this immediate transition from the secular, material, busy world suddenly to be in the presence of Christ. And at least Catholics have the practice, but when you go through the door, you drop to your knees. But Catholic Anglicans don't do that. So
yes,
so
but that's quite the point. That's quite the point, is that they're rushing from their secular world into a liturgy that is not that much different from the world.
Oh, I don't see that at all. I think the liturgy, well, it depends who's doing it. Where they do it in Shrewsbury Cathedral, it's wonderfully reverent, and they mean it and they love it. And the clergy are really admirable people who bring a degree of dignity, authenticity, and the life of prayer that they've been engaging with. So you absolutely, the liturgy and the place challenge you, and you have to walk in, and it's stronger than what you bring in. So what you bring in is left behind, and the presence of Christ and the power of the liturgy take over because they have authority and they're real. And that can happen at a Novus Ordo Mass. It's better at the Latin Mass, I think.
Do you think so? At the traditional Mass?
Yes, I love
because of what's left in. Because of what's left in, I suppose. Because although you've got nice priests, good priests, holy priests doing holy things, there's the liturgy is limited by what's been taken out. So is that why you think the traditional rite is superior?
The primary thing that always affects me most when I have gone to the traditional rite is the quality of focus on the presence of God. First of all, everyone's looking in the right direction, and secondly, there's a degree of what's the word I'm looking for? Not commitment, but performative competence and integrity from the priest who's celebrating. It's about what he and the Lord are doing, and we're there to come along. It doesn't matter how we feel about it, but there's a degree, I think, of integrity of focus in the Latin Mass, which you can lose in the Novus Ordo unless you work much harder. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe you just have to work an awful lot harder in the Novus Ordo. Well, if that's the case, I'm prepared to do that. I don't want to despite the fact that I think Bugnini pulled a series of fast ones, and I'd like to see liturgical reform, and I'd like to see more of the Latin Mass. I think what I want to do is to say, let's make the very most of the Novus Ordo to make the most of it that we can, in order that that we enter as deeply as possible into the mystery of Christ's sacrifice.
And is that you making that effort, or by God's grace? That one can
effort, Catherine.
No, but I mean, when you say we have to try harder, is it you trying harder, or is it receiving an abundance of grace that where you can, if you want, kind of going up in gears, shifting gears, that you can get as far as you need to off your own bat? Is that what you're saying?
I don't want to impose my experience on people, but I find that when I try hard, God meets me halfway. And sometimes I'm aware of him carrying me further. Sometimes I think he does it when I'm not aware, when I'm aware or not. I'm a bit hesitant to take the temperature of the authenticity of the Holy Spirit. All I know is that it's incumbent upon me to turn up in the best possible attentive state, and then to give it my all during the liturgy. The rest is up to him.
Which I suppose is through the sacrament of confession. The sacraments are there to help us, to give us the grace to make the next step, or to continue, as you've, I think, been describing.
Yes, I can't add to what you've said so beautifully.
I like this, Gavin. Look, some Anglican churches now observe Corpus Christi, sometimes under the name Thanksgiving for Holy Communion.
Bless them.
Do you like that?
They have no idea what they're doing. So, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do.
I knew you'd like that.
Thank you, Lord, for the Passover picnic. What a joy it was. Shame Judas had to walk out in the middle.
You'll get complaints, Gav. There'll be complaints.
Oh.
Don't hurt anyone's feelings. Mark, you've got something to show us. Go on, Gav. Go on.
Well, I was looking up. There's a sort of sub-editor of the Anglican Church Times. I was on Twitter just now, and earlier on today, and I thought, gosh, I wonder what her numbers are. So I sort of pressed on her profile, and she's blocked you. I had no idea that the Anglican sub-editor of the Church Times was so angry with me that she blocked me on Twitter, because I hadn't bothered to refer to her before. But I think I took it as a compliment.
I'm sure the Church Times published something the other day. I don't want to defame or defraud the Church Times, or whatever the correct wording is. I'm sure they published something in light of the bills, sympathetic to at least one of them, whether it was the abortion bill or
it's a great platform for feminist liberal spirituality. Does that very well. Yeah.
Mark, I was saying you've got something to show us, and you're muted again.
Hang on, Catholic.
Anyone think you'd never done this before?
We normally cut all this out, but we're live, so.
Yeah. Well, no, I was just gonna. I don't know. Like that is. So this is Corpus Christi at our place, and as you were talking about, like the attitude of the priest. This is one of the things that I think our parish priest does really beautifully. Is that I must diminish so he can increase, and it's very much about showing us Jesus, sort of thing. It really comes across in his attitude and the way that he, does things. So I, as Gavin said, I there's no way I would want to decry. I always think about the three stages: the purgative way, the illuminative way, and the unitive way. The three stages of, and. We have to. There is a journey that we go on to reach the next stage. It's important that we understand that we're engaged with everything on each one of those stages. And I just think my own personal experience was very much one where right worship, if you like, was something that came quite late. I don't know if and probably would have helped me if it came earlier, but. It doesn't mean there are lots of people, watching us and who engage with us, and I wouldn't want to discourage anyone and say, for me, I think it's very much about your relationship with God, and that's the most important thing. Is
careful, you're starting to sound like a Protestant.
Well, it's these Baptists that I'm mixing with, Catherine.
It is. They're rubbing off on you, Mark. It's meant to be the other way round.
Well, what can I say?
Yeah, obviously, I've just you on your message. You should have a picture there at the end of our liturgy today. I don't know if you can bring that up. There's our outgoing father. Have you got that? I can't. I don't seem to have the technology to draw that up, Mark.
Hang on. Well, not on the Catholic unscripted.
No, I don't think so. Yeah. Anyway, so it was our lovely priest's last day. He's off to Rome to lead the seminarians at the Beda College. So we say goodbye to him. But it was beautiful. It was a beautiful liturgy, and as always, lots of proud young men just serving, and yeah, very. There we are. There's our made a canon. He's made a canon.
Bravo. Wonderful. Yeah. I was a canon once.
You weren't.
Not a proper one, no.
Yeah.
Not a proper one. No.
Sorry, Gav.
No, absolutely. A very improper canon.
Yeah. we can call ourselves whatever we want, Gavin, but it doesn't make it true.
Yeah. Well, more of a rifle.
I think on the sort of the trans journey, I identified.
You were trans canon.
You identified as a canon. I like
you
that.
identified as
very PC.
Right. Let's just recap, or at least fly through some of these comments before we close. Oh gosh, our bishop is closing our school, banned the mentioning of it in church grounds, blame the parents for not keeping baptismal promises. I think we might have passed on so much. Somebody's joyful for this beautiful day, but angry about the decline of our culture. Yes, the crazy Englishman, we agree. And do Anglicans recite the rosary? There you go, Gav. You did when you were an Anglican, didn't you? Yeah, but you did. And that's brought you to the church.
But only because I discovered Our Lady. You know, Anglicans don't
do it at Walsingham. Some of them do it at Walsingham, don't they? The ones that, like I've done it with them at Walsingham.
There's a very small group of sacramental nostalgics who pretend to be Catholics, but don't want to accept the authority of the Pope or give up their Anglican privileges. I'm not hugely impressed by them, I'm afraid.
Listen, I want to pull up this. It went past while we were talking. DJ Q, thank you for this. This is a really important comment, because we can whinge all we like, but I do think, as somebody else said, the church isn't just the bishops and we just sit and wait for the clergy. We are responsible. We have to be responsible. We really need to step up our penitence, our acts of reparation, fasting and such, to fight against this. You know, this is a spiritual battle. This is spiritual warfare, and we fight using the tools our Lord gave us. And so I think that's a really important point, DJ Q. Thank you for mentioning it. Let's do our best to do that, because we have to be faithful, continue our prayers and our fasting and offering up our suffering. I'm just looking here.
I was thinking, you know, wouldn't it be...
to join you at Baptist Church?
Yeah, come along. Wouldn't it be powerful if our bishops, you know, like, I don't know if you saw, I sort of did put on Twitter, imagine being a bishop of England and Wales with this week coming through. It frightened me. You know, I felt frightened for them. And the Bishops' Conference put something out sort of saying, well, we've done everything that we possibly could have done. And I thought, have you? You know, did you really? I haven't seen any bishops on, you know, we've invited Cardinal Nicholas to come on and talk to people, or send a proxy, and we've had nothing.
Yeah.
All credit to the Archbishop of Southwark, who I thought did a very good job indeed. Yes.
No, and
he's a good one. He's a good egg.
We're grateful for what they've done, but at the same time, imagine how powerful it would be if our bishops now acted out acts of reparation. You know, if they put on sackcloth and ashes,
absolutely,
and said, "This really matters." You know, we really are worried about this. What a powerful sign that would be.
I'd like to go further, Mark. I mean, although we haven't articulated it, I think this week may very well be taken as a hinge point where there's a final. We moved from the influence of Christendom to the influence of something else. We've been calling it paganism, and there really isn't the better word for it. But when people have said, well, we thought this was a Christian country, well, it may have been, but from this week it stopped being. And I think there would be
Not
some
from this
scope.
week.
This particular week where the abortion law and euthanasia laws were changed could be said.
But they're the result of us not being a Christian country.
I'm just saying they could be seen to be the mark of transition, and therefore, if you're after a dramatic act to look, this week would offer you a symbolic moment to respond to, and you might then choose this week as a symbolic moment of transition to say and do something about it, to lament and to warn the people that by throwing off all the gifts that Catholicism has brought to this country, that actually digging a very profound hole in themselves. I'm saying this week had a symbolic intensity to it that could have been used, as Mark was saying, and all credit to Archbishop Wilson for doing it.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned earlier the abortion question, that a lot of people saying, oh, it's gone too far, but they're happy with abortion up to maybe 10 weeks or 12 weeks. And I think this is the barrier we also face is, we're frightened to say, nah, abortion is not okay ever. This is from conception. And I think we're almost happy to say, wouldn't it be such a win to get it down to 21 weeks? And you think, what, because it's okay to kill a child at 21 weeks and not 24 weeks? So I think we're too happy with compromise. We're too worried, like Mark began by saying the bishops have come out softly and compassionately, and Bishop Allen said, this is, you don't have to believe this, but I happen to think abortion's wrong, don't want to push you. We need our clergy, we need our bishops to speak out strongly without compromise. It's compromise. Everything's compromise. Compromise. There's no leaders. Get people worshipping right, and the leaders will be formed. The leaders are being formed. But don't let them worship right, and they're not going to lead. That's why we're crushing the traditional right and the right worship, because we don't want leaders to be formed, because they'll threaten the status quo. Go on, Gav. I know you want to get in.
When there's a moment, no one could say that this chat show was comfortable with compromise. Let's put in a C. Was this cozy chat show was comfortable with compromise?
We started, I'm sure not all of you have been here since the beginning. We started with the fact that Gavin likes his alliteration. So there we are. This chat show is not cozy with compromise. Good. Well, thank you. Nice to see you all here. And Nicole, the crazy Englishman, DJ Q, York Mum's back. Some usual TP was here earlier, correcting us all and congratulating me on not saying the T in often. Thank you, TP. And some new faces.
More often. It's lovely. It's lovely to have people. I like it. It's bit like anyway. It's very nice to do this live. Thank you all of you.
Are we supposed to say the T in often, or are we not?
I don't know. We normally go with what Gavin says because he's correct.
Yeah, because he's posh.
But he says T in often.
Yeah,
I
often.
Well, let's just go with the fact that Catherine's getting praise, and that's fine. Let her be the example, shining example for the rest of us, even with often.
My friend who wants to come to the Baptist thing, have a word with me at Mass, and I'll talk to you about it. But it wouldn't just be me and you. There are a few other Catholics now who started coming. I think we're going to outnumber the Baptists soon. So.
Good. Yes, that's what we like to see. We love you, Baptists, but what's over? Convert. We'll sign off in a moment. We did have a couple of people asking about retreats. We haven't been able to do one for quite some time. I can't remember when the last one was. It might have been last autumn. We will at some point plan another, but we're trying to get a new website, Substack, up and running, which will tell you more about and how you can become a member. If you are already a member, don't worry, we'll migrate your membership so you'll already be up and running. But when that's ready, we will let you know, and you can become a member and have everything all in one place, which has been lacking. I know we've been bouncing from website to YouTube, but all in one place, videos, articles, and everything that you come to us for, you will see. And we'll meet like this live as well. So Gavin, yes, you'd like more of this. We will meet more often doing lives, and I hope that you enjoy it. Thanks. for now, I will be back next week with some broadcasts from Lourdes and maybe tune in with Mark and Gavin and record from there. But until then, thank you for watching. I'm Catherine Bennett. This is Catholic Unscripted.
I'm Mark Lambert.
I'm Gavin Ashenden. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and share.